So part 2, pro tip, if you're not willing to talk about some deeply personal shit about where you find your motivation to take care of yourself in front of random strangers that happen to walk by, you might not want to go to a pond at a public park. Yeah. I don't know, maybe that was a bad idea, whatever. I just wanted to be outside. But, man, motivation's such a tricky thing, and I think part of it is like learning how to discipline yourself. I think self-discipline is something that most people don't cultivate within themselves. I think it's something that most people struggle with, and I think that because they struggle with it, they end up giving up and fuck it, I'll just be the unruly monster in my head because, you know, it's hard and it's easier to just give in to the unruly monster in your head. Which is true. It is easier to give in to the unruly monster in your head. That is your brain. Honestly, it's really just your brain. But, like, that, I think, is the true purpose of learning discipline, is to be better than you were yesterday. And part of it is like learning how to be uncomfortable. I think that's a really big thing for a lot of people, is that they can't be uncomfortable. And I think food is the number one way. No, maybe not number one, there's obviously more, but food is a really deeply personal way for people to make themselves feel better. Oh, I'm having a bad day, let me eat some chocolate. I'm having a bad day, so I'm gonna treat myself to a donut because I deserve it. And I can't get behind that anymore. I used to. I did go through all that shit when I was first going low carb, and I was struggling with myself, and I was having all these like insane cravings, and like just it was a mental game. And I have two triggers. Well, not triggers, but like things that I crave that I know mean that I'm having a really hard time with my emotional state. One, I want a stout beer. A nice cold glass of some thick, chewy stout that you can sink your teeth into, that tastes like fucking liquid chocolate. Like, oh, so good, right? And then I want cupcakes. I want a cupcake with more frosting than cupcake, so that I can like sink my teeth into that like crusty, sugary, sickly, sweet buttercream frosting on top of whatever cupcake that I thought was good that day. Like, those are the two things that I want the most when I'm so stressed out. And I'll be honest, like, I don't even feel that way anymore. But when I first went low carb and I was first learning how to deal with my emotional state around food and around stress and around substances and all of this other stuff, like, that was what I struggled with the most. And the more I wanted a beer and a cupcake, the worse my emotional state was. And I know that now. At the time, this was 3 years ago? Yeah, I'm 29 now. I started low carb when I was 26. Yeah, so this was 3 years ago. At the time, I didn't understand what my cravings meant and why I had them and what to do about them that wasn't just shoving the thing I was craving into my face. Because, I mean, let's be real with ourselves, guys. Like, eating the cupcake when you're desperately craving the cupcake is probably the last thing that you should eat. Cupcakes aren't good for you. You can argue until you're fucking blue in the face and make all your low carb cupcakes with all your artificial sweeteners and like almond flour and like whatever. I cannot get behind the fact that cupcakes are good for you. And I will not. And I never will. Nope. If you're desperately craving something that is not a protein food or a fat food or a food that has nutritional value to it, then you are not actually hungry. I'm going to say that again. If you're craving something that is not a protein food, it is not a fat food, and it has no nutritional value, you are not actually hungry. If you wouldn't eat a steak, and I'm sorry if you're vegetarian or vegan or whatever plant-based thing, I'm not going to get behind that either, and I'm not going to get into it. I'm not argue with it. Don't even go there. If you're not craving a protein food, or you wouldn't eat like a piece of cheese or, you know, a sausage or a steak or whatever, you're not hungry. And I think that a really big problem for a lot of people, and this was my biggest problem at the beginning too, was learning how to identify when I needed to feed my body versus my mind. When was I in a state of true hunger? I'm gonna be honest with you guys, when I was 26 years old and I was first going low carb, in the previous 23 years of my life of being type 1, I did not know what true hunger actually was, because I had been feeding my insulin my entire life. I had been feeding my medication. I had been force feeding myself in order to prevent disaster. I was a bottomless pit when I was a child, and my blood sugars were always high. And I can feel it now. When my blood sugar gets above a certain level, for me, at this point in the game, it's about like a 130. If my blood sugar is 130 or higher, I am hungry. And it's not actual hunger. At that point, it's metabolic starvation. My cells are starving because this fuel that they need is floating around in my bloodstream instead of getting into my cells. I'm not hungry. I need to bring my blood sugar down. And usually once I bring my blood sugar down, I'm not hungry anymore. And then once I address the elevated blood sugars and my appetite goes away, and then I stabilize my blood sugars, I wait until I'm actually hungry. And then I'll eat some protein foods, like eggs or bacon or ground beef or pork ribs or like whatever, you know, something protein, until I'm full, pleasantly so, not stuffed, because that sets off a cascade of other blood sugar problems, but pleasantly full of protein foods. And then I'm good. And then I wait until I'm hungry again. But I have to wait until I'm actually hungry. If I want a cupcake, or if I want a beer, or if I think something else that's not that, not protein or fat foods, if I think those are appealing, I should probably sit down with myself and address why I want those things. I think this is a really important part of overcoming your cravings and addressing the willpower. And this is, again, something that I don't think anyone can actually help you with. You have to help yourself with this. Maybe you need a therapist to help you, like, get out of your own head enough to be able to objectively look at your own problems. I guess I've got a lot of practice with that. Fuck, I don't know. I genuinely do not know what makes me different from everybody else. And I wish I did, because if I knew what made me different from everybody else, I could fucking bottle it and sell it and be rich. Right? Like, I think a lot of it has to do with the unwillingness to be uncomfortable. I'm okay with being uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable my entire life. I've been sick my entire life. This is the first time in the 29 years that I've been alive that I have not been in pain, that I have not been extremely anxious, that I have not been depressed, that I have not felt in some way that I was lacking, that I have actually felt stable and well and grounded and whole. This is the first time ever that I have ever felt that. And that's what motivates me, because I'm coming from a place of, like, almost desperation. No, not almost, of desperation. I came from a place where I found out I was going blind, like I mentioned in the other video I just made. And I will do absolutely anything to prevent that. I will do whatever it takes to prevent that. And I'm emphasizing my point by taking my hat off and throwing it on the ground, because I don't care. Yeah, donuts smell good, but you know what happens when I eat them? I will become probably violently ill, and it will spark off this cascade of blood sugar shoots up, pump some insulin, bring blood sugar back down, drop hypo, because how can you possibly guess how many carbs are in a donut and accurately dose your insulin for that? You can't. There's no way to do it. And so that roller coaster of blood sugars up and down sets off this trigger of anxiety and depression. And there's physiological things going on that trigger anxiety and depression as well, like inflammation, insulin spiking, and then sugar crashing. Like, there's all kinds of shit that happens, and I think more people are experiencing that than they want to admit. Honestly, I think we're all experiencing it at some point, and I think that a lot of people feel helpless against it. They feel just blown around by the winds of whim, and I don't feel good right now, and I don't know why, and I'm cranky, and I'm upset, and I'm anxious, and I had a bad day, so I'm gonna drink this Coca-Cola and eat this Reese's peanut butter cup, and that'll make me feel better, right? Yeah, temporarily that will make you feel better, because the sugar and the caffeine and in those foods and drinks lights up all of the centers in your brain that dopamine does. It has the same effect on your brain as cocaine. I know that sounds harsh, and I know that a lot of people don't want to admit that sugar is a drug like that, but it lights you up. It makes you feel better. It really does. Go eat some sugar right now and tell me you don't feel fucking great afterwards. You feel fucking great afterwards, and then an hour later you want a nap. But if you abstain from those things for long enough, then you will find that you don't want them anymore. I know that a lot of people don't want to admit that, and they can't sit with their own state of being uncomfortable long enough to push through those cravings and to push through the intense mental game that is, quote unquote, depriving yourself. But if you push through that long enough, eventually you don't want it anymore. Eventually it goes away. But you have to commit. You have to realize that it feels like you're depriving yourself. It feels physically painful to go through withdrawal. But once you do that, then you don't want it anymore. Once you do that, once you come out the other side of the withdrawal and the adaptation process, and you realize that engaging in that behavior becomes harmful, or it's been harmful this whole time, but now you're able to see how harmful it is, you stop wanting it. And I think that a big part of making huge dietary changes like that is not your relationship with food. You don't have a relationship with food. You have a relationship with substances that you use to placate yourself and to put a balm on your emotional state because you're uncomfortable and you don't like it and you want it to stop. And the only way to make the uncomfortable feelings actually stop is to learn how to be uncomfortably comfortable. To learn how to sit with that and to accept it and to allow it and then to be okay with it. And goddamn is that painful. It's really fucking painful. And nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to sit there and stare down their demons and the ugly things inside themselves and those voices in your head that are telling you all kinds of nasty shit. Nobody wants to sit with that. They want to make it stop. Make it stop. Make it stop. It's awful. It's painful. It hurts. Substances. Shove them in my face. You're not going to make it better by shoving substances into your face. You really aren't. And I know that hurts, and I know that you don't want to admit it, but it's true. And I went through this process with myself where, honestly, side note, I'm really grateful for my dad because he got sober from alcohol at the same time that I went low carb. And so we were both going through our own sobriety journey together. And that was extremely helpful, I think, for both of us, because we were both learning how to live our new lives without the thing that we used to use to make ourselves feel better. And that's really hard. It's really hard. I'm not gonna lie and say that this last 3 years is, oh, it's just been a cakewalk, I gave up carbs. Like, no, it wasn't. And I didn't have any support other than my friends and family who were like, yeah, good for you, take care of yourself. But like from the people that I needed help from, like the doctors who could help me dose the medication that I'm on, they told me I was gonna kill myself. They told me that what I was doing was harmful and against their medical advice. And they told me that if I continued on this path going against their medical advice, that they would no longer treat me and that I would end up with severe complications and I would end up with like all kinds of crazy shit. I don't even fucking remember what they told me, but I would be in the parking lot after a doctor's appointment crying on the phone to my mom because I felt so alone, because some bitch of a certified dietitian expert, whatever a CDE stands for, told me that I was gonna kill myself. Meanwhile, in my regular life, I'm going blind. I'm throwing up undigested food every morning. I'm in constant pain. I don't feel well. I feel ill. I have been ill my entire life, and I wanted to try something that I thought would make me feel better. That's all I wanted this whole time, was to feel better and to not go blind. And I really had to learn how to be uncomfortable and learn how to be okay with it, because nobody else was gonna help me. Nobody else was gonna do it for me. And if I wanted to do this thing, then I needed to figure it out for myself. And that's really fucking hard, and it's really fucking painful, and nobody wants to do it. They want somebody to hold their hand. All I wanted when I first went low carb was for somebody to hold my hand and tell me what to do and to give me a hug. And I didn't have that. And so I had to learn how to do it for myself. And that was hard. But here I am at the point where I can stand there and look at a dozen donuts and be like, oh, yeah, that smells like donuts. Cool. I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't care. I have completely lost any and all desire for those things. But it took me several years of really hard work to get to that point. And I was committed. I was wholly committed to that struggle. And if you're not wholly committed to that struggle, then you're not going to want to do it, and you will self-sabotage. And I did self-sabotage. I did. I went through periods where I was like, fuck it, this is too hard. And I stopped. And then I went back to what I was doing. And then I realized that dealing with the side effects and complications of doing what I was doing was even worse than how hard it was to try to do better for myself. So again, where do you find the motivation for that without having hit your own personal rock bottom? I have absolutely no idea. And I'm sorry that I can't answer that question. I wish I could, because people ask me this question all the time. I don't know. What motivates you? Why are you doing this? That's what I kept asking myself this whole time. Why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this hell? Adapting to low carb living was hell. I went through these periods where I would be standing there and my heart was like beating at 160 beats per minute, and I was sheet white, and I felt like I was gonna fucking fall over, and I thought I needed to go to the emergency room because I was dying. But I knew that if I went to the emergency room, all they would do is tell me, oh, you're type 1 diabetic, you need to eat carbs, and then they would give them to me, and then it would shoot my blood sugar up, and it would maybe stop the problems that I was having, but it would set me on that cycle all over again. So shit, I can't go to a doctor right now and expect that they're going to be able to help me. I have to help myself. And that's a lot. It's a lot. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's a lot, and it's really hard, and it's really painful. I wish I had other answers for that, but you have to figure out what you want out of life, and you have to figure out what sacrifices you're willing to make. And you have to come to a point with yourself where they're not sacrifices anymore, they're choices. I choose to do this for myself because myself deserves this. I deserve to be healthy, and I deserve to be well, and I deserve to give myself the gift of a long and happy life. That's what motivates me to do this. That's what keeps me on this track. That's what gets me to the point where I don't give a shit about donuts or cake or candy or soda or whatever other like sugary thing that you might have a problem with. You deserve to be healthy, and you deserve to be well, and you deserve to love yourself enough to give yourself that. And if you can't bring yourself to give yourself that, I would challenge you to find out why. Why do you feel like you don't deserve it? Why do you feel like you're weak or a failure, or you'll never be able to do this? Why do you not feel capable and confident and able to do this for yourself? Why do you feel that way? Sit down with it, write it out, get a journal, ask yourself these questions. You're gonna have to think about it a lot, and you're gonna have to answer some really uncomfortable shit. But once you do that, and you identify those things within yourself, and you come to the conclusion that, yeah, you are worth it, you do deserve that, then anything less is unacceptable. Anything less is not an option. That's where I'm at right now, is anything that's not a good food for me, for my body, for this meat spacesuit that I was given at birth, anything that is not good for this is not an option anymore. And it takes a while to get to that point, and you have to ask yourself why you're holding yourself back from that. And that's not easy. You have to learn how to be uncomfortable. And I think that's the biggest problem, is people don't want to be uncomfortable. And I've said that a couple of times in this video, but it's the goddamn truth. People don't want to be uncomfortable. Why would you actively pursue being uncomfortable? I'll tell you why. Because being uncomfortable teaches you how to grow. It teaches you how to be a better person. It teaches you what you're capable of. It tests your mettle. Be uncomfortable. Be afraid. Be upset. Yeah, do that. Because if you never do that for yourself, you'll never find your own personal limits. You'll never grow as a person. And if you don't want to grow as a person, that's fine, cool, don't. But go into that consciously. Know that that's what you're doing. That's all I really got on this topic. I wish I had better answers for people when they ask me how to find this for themselves. But the gist of it is, you gotta be uncomfortable. And you gotta be okay with that until you're not uncomfortable anymore. So, I'm off to go grocery shopping. I got some ribs and some ground beef and some bottled water to buy. Probably gonna get some cashews. Good stuff. Things that my meat spacesuit enjoys, that make my meat spacesuit feel good. I hope that you find something of value in this. I hope hope that this is worthwhile. I hope that everything I've said is not just me sitting in a park rambling to my phone, because I think about this stuff all the time. And if you want to talk about this, please reach out, because I love talking about this. I love having these conversations. I think they're important. I think that we need to talk about it. We need to share our struggles with one another so that we can grow together. So if you want to talk about where to find your deepest grit and what you need, I'm down. Let's do it. Let's be better together. All right, guys.